Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be reviewing The Star Beast, but we're going to be reviewing the Big Finish adaptation of the comic book, which of course stars Tom Baker as the legendary Fourth Doctor. Now, it is very similar in the very broad strokes to the TV adaptation we just got with David Tennant as the 14th Doctor and Catherine Tate as Donna Noble. In the broad strokes. But there is actually a lot of differences in here. Not quite to the extent that Jubilee and Dalek, while the same, are also very different. Not quite to that extent, but there's a lot more going on. Mainly, one thing is the Big Finish audio adaptation is longer. I believe the TV version of the Star Beast is about an hour, around an hour, just under an hour. Whereas the Big Finish audio is an hour and 45 minutes, so you get a lot more runtime for stuff to do. Now, that's going to be hit or miss with some people. Some people might like the longer runtime in the Big Finish story because it gives it more time to breathe, more time for things to be explained, whereas other people might think that stretches it out too long and then there's padding in there. That's going to vary from person to person, and of course, with the TV version, you get visual. You know, you can actually see it as well as hear it, where the audio has to rely on audio. But it also has the Fourth Doctor. You know, if you're a David Tennant fan, you have the 14th Doctor here. If you're a Tom Baker fan, you have the Fourth Doctor here. Of course, this in the comics was originally a Fourth Doctor story. I really like the voice actress voicing the Meep in the audio, just as I did in the TV version. The Meep, it's drawn out a little more. I think it's about 40-45 minutes into the story before we learn the twist. I mean, we know it anyway, but the Meep, a lot of this doesn't even talk. She just says meep, kind of like meowing like a cat, just meep, 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 meep. You know, it just kind of does that for a while, and you start to wonder if, okay, in this adaptation, can it talk? You're not really sure. It's not until you get about around 40 minutes in, when sometimes, much like Garfield the cat, you can it kind of lets us hear what the Meep is thinking. Not saying out loud, but what the Meep is thinking in his head. And yes, in the audio, they do refer to the Meep as a he, so I am using my pronouns properly. Thank you very much. But you can hear what's going on in his head. He's thinking out loud of, oh, just wait till I get out here. I'll pay you back tenfold for this. Doctor, you're getting too clever. You know, there's a lot of that in there popping in his head. And then eventually he starts to talk, being the kind of innocent sounding, I'm just a nice, cuddly, cute Meep. Much like the Meep does for the first part of the TV story, where the Meep tries to come off as, I'm cute and cuddly and innocent. No one would want to think any ill of me. Right? And the Meep, I will point, while it's referred to as a he in the audio, does have a more voice, a feminine voice, a more female voice, a lighter, high-pitched voice. Like, it's probably a female voicing the Meep in the audio. I'm not certain. But it does have that more high-pitched, feminine-sounding voice, which I think is a neat contrast to have that feminine voice, but with the character being referred to as if it's a male. I think that's an interesting contrast because it is an alien character. I actually find that quite fascinating. Tom Baker is great. Now, occasionally I have trouble in Big Finish when I'm adjusting to a Doctor. I had the same problem with Colin Baker. I've talked about this before, where it takes me a minute to adjust to them because they sound a little older, for one. But also, like, sometimes they sound a little different, like they're hitting their beats as the Doctor slightly different. Just enough to where someone who watches Doctor Who as much as I do, and as much as some of you do, you notice the little things. It did take a second to where you almost wonder if it's Tom Baker or somebody impersonating Tom Baker. But, per usual, like with Colin, once I get adjusted, it's all systems go. And once I adjusted, which didn't take long, I was like, yes, this is Tom Baker, this is the Fourth Doctor, and he is genius. Much like I am with Colin Baker stories. And so once I was adjusted, I really got on board with Tom. He was putting in a good performance. I had a lot of problem with the main guest characters, Sharon and Fudge. First off, Fudge is a ridiculous name. Why would you name someone Fudge? That's a stupid name, Fudge. Please don't ever name your child Fudge. And if you do, expect him to do bad things to you because you have it coming. And then Sharon is the woman's name. And it's nothing against the voice actors voicing them, but their voices are very annoying. I don't know what form of British dialect that is, but it's really annoying. Now, again, I kind of adjusted to it as the story went on. Hour and 45-minute story. By the end of it, it wasn't as bothersome. But there were a lot of times I was listening to them talk where I'm like, I really wish they'd shut up. I'd give real money if they'd shut up. Because their voices, just that particular dialect, I don't like it. I just find it very irksome. I love the people voicing the Wrath Warriors. I like how the kind of two sergeants, much like in the TV episode, they have these kind of just regular British voices. Kind of like, again, I'm an American, so I don't know how all these British voices break down, but I would think of it as more the kind of blue-collar worker voices. Much like the TV episode did, and I mentioned that in my Star Beast review for that. I love that they're kind of just regular voices. They don't have alien voices, they have regular voices. They have that in the audio too, and I totally love it. Now, the commander of the Wrath Warriors is in this one a lot more, and he has a more almost sinister sounding voice, again, to kind of throw you off thinking they're the bad guys. And he does say some questionable things about, like when they first show up, he's like, I wish I could just blow up the whole planet and take care of the meat. And how he's willing to detonate a bomb that would blow up like the whole city just to take out the meat. Yeah, he kind of does more to make you think the Wrath Warriors are bad. Because you don't really get a lot of that in the TV version. It's more just their appearance and them running around shooting stuff that you're basing that off of. Whereas here, again, no visuals, you're having to rely on audio. Listening to the Wrath Commander talk, you can kind of, and the way his voice is done with that kind of evil-sounding voice, or evil-ish sounding voice, to kind of get across that, hey, of course these are the bad guys, right? I like, it's a little different in places, like at the beginning of the story, the Fourth Doctor is taken on board their ship by a tractor beam because they think he's an accomplice of the Meep. And they knock him out, and while they're knocked out, they implant a bomb that's also a tracking unit into his stomach, and then they let him escape, which is kind of funny, that whole scene. Tom Baker has a lot of, the Fourth Doctor wit and witticism in this that, of course, are the Fourth Doctor. There's a lot of that in here. Like when they're attacking him, he's like, they're moving to get me in a pincer move. And then he kind of quietly, I do think it's time for me to make my escape. Or something like that. I should be leaving right now. I can't remember exactly what he says, but the way he does it's absolutely hilarious. It's like, you're getting me in a pincer move. I think I should be making my way out of it. It's pretty funny. And then his stomach keeps gurgling at him, because unbeknownst to him, there's a bomb hidden in it. And I like how he holds a conversation with his stomach, and the stomach holds a conversation back. You can hear glurg, glurg, glurg. And he's like, that's right, stomach. It's very Fourth Doctor, very Tom Baker, and I enjoy that. And then, of course, when the Doctor does finally using his sonic to scan for tech, realize there's a bomb in him because he realizes the thing is coming from him. He quickly, wraps himself in, lead siding off the roof to keep it from detonating. And then the Wrath Warriors almost get sacrificed because the commander wants to detonate the bomb, and he's thanking the sergeants, and he's like, don't worry, we'll award you the highest honor, posthumously. And they're like, wait, what? Posthumously? It's pretty funny. You have to listen to it, I guess. You have Fudge's mom, who is hilarious. She's very much a mom. She's a very stereotypical kind of, I don't really know how to describe Fudge's mom. She's actually kind of like Donna in a little way. Not a lot, but a little way. Even when there's aliens in there and she's passing out crackers, she's just like, just two each, mine, two each. I guess I can make some tea, but two. It's pretty funny. It has a very different feel to it, even though it's hitting the same beats. A couple of things are moved, like in the TV version, the unit soldiers are brainwashed at the beginning of the story. That happens more at the end of the story. In the audio, where right before the Meep is trying to leave, and they do actually call him Beep the Meep, whereas in the story I think it's just referred to as the Meep. In the story he is referred to as the leader of the Meeps, who is Beep the Meep. It's toward the end when he's getting ready to leave, all the unit scientists get hypnotized, as does Sharon actually. And it actually gives more of an explanation on that. You know, we never really got, I think, much of an explanation in the TV episode. There was just this thing in there, and when it opened, it hypnotized everybody. I don't think it ever really touched on that. Whereas in the audio, you learn that is kind of the Black Sun, like a miniature version of the Black Sun, the thing that turned all the Meeps evil. And you really get more of a backstory on that. Because again, longer runtime where it talks about how the Meeps used to be nice and cuddly and sweet, and then the Black Sun turned them evil, and how they waged a war across the galaxy, and how eventually they were stopped and destroyed, all except for their leader, Peep, who escaped. And so we actually find out the Black Sun the Meep has in the ship. And of course, when everybody's exposed to the rays of the Black Sun, it makes them servants of the Meep. So it explains that better, and now I'm sitting there going, okay, that makes a little more sense. The ending is similar in the fact that the Meep is trying to leave, and if it leaves, it could destroy the city. In the TV episode, of course, it's that underground thing that'll turn into a ball of flame. In the audio, it just creates like a black hole that the city will get sucked into. Now, it's slightly different because the Meep does actually get to take off, but luckily the Doctor and Sharon had managed to turn down the power, so the Meep didn't jump as far as it wanted. The black hole only opened for like briefly, not enough to do any damage. I don't know how accurate that would be, but we'll roll with it. And the Meep, instead of jumping like this far, only jumped like this far, right outside the Earth's range, so the Wrath Warriors were quickly able to get him in a tractor beam and capture him. And I do like at the end where the Meep is still trying to pull off the, but Sharon, I'm nice and sweet, and I got tricked, and it's all the Black Sun's fault for corrupting me. And then he's even telling the Wrath Warriors, you don't want me, it's actually my brother you want, he's the best. It's pretty funny, this whole not taking accountability for your actions thing, this blaming everyone else, it wasn't me, thing in there that I liked. And then the Sharon and the Fourth Doctor get to go on adventures together. She kind of travels with him for a while. So they're very different stories. I mean, it's like getting two different flavors of the same story. Two very different flavors. They follow the same broad strokes, including the twist with the Meep and all of that, but they take very different ways to get there. They're very different experiences. Of course, part of that is because one is a visual experience with audio and the other is an audio experience. I'm sure if I read the comic, I'd have a third take on it. But they do progress very differently. You can see in the TV adaptation which characters are standing in for who. But again, with the audio Big Finish adaptation having so much more runtime, there's so much more to do. Plus, I love the fact in the Big Finish when the Wrath Warriors have like glowing eyeballs that the Doctor thinks is like a light switch at first. It's like, do I squeeze it, press it, twist it? Oh, I didn't realize that was one of your eyes. I'm sorry. And that's how he can spot them at night when they're ambushing Fudge's mom's house, or Fudge's house, I guess. Because he can see the glowing eyeballs. He's like, yep, they're here. Do I have a preference for them? Not really. I think they're both good. I enjoyed both versions. The Big Finish audio doesn't have the whole Let It Go scene in it. That's probably the most cringe thing I've ever seen in Doctor Who. And I've seen Dangerous Green Bubble Wrap in Doctor Who, and I can let that go. But the Big Finish audio is perfect proof that scene didn't need to be there. That is probably the worst scene I've ever seen in Doctor Who. I'd rather watch a Zarbi bump the camera. And this is from someone who likes the TV version of the Star Beast. They actually handled most of the progressive stuff they were dealing with in places well in that story. Very well in that story. Aside from that one scene, very well. So I enjoy both versions. It's kind of more just which one am I in the mood for most. I don't necessarily prefer one over the other. It's just, am I in the mood to watch the TV version, or am I in the mood to listen to the Big Finish audio version? I can see myself going back to either one. They're both really good, which it just goes to show the story itself is a good story. With a neat twist, with a good lesson. The same lesson Galaxy 4 teaches about not judging a book by its cover, which I like. Doctor Who can do that well. But I enjoyed it. The Big Finish audio, much like the TV version, was a great listen, and I very much enjoyed it. So have you ever listened to the Fourth Doctor's version of the Star Beast? And if you have, what do you think of it? And which one do you prefer between the two? Comment down below and let me know. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. Several different tiers to choose from. This video itself was actually a Patreon request. One of my patrons requested that I listen to the Big Finish version of the story, and so I am doing this for him, because some of the tiers do offer video requests once a month for anything you might want me to talk about, sci-fi related. If you're interested in that, links to that down there below. I also have a P.O. box down there if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review. Links to my Amazon wish list are down there as well, and YouTube memberships are also available. Most importantly, well, I better give a thanks to my patrons as well. I like to thank some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Perkins. I appreciate their support as I do the support of all of my patrons. I also want to give a shout out to Unknown289, who of course requested this story. It was a great listen, and I certainly appreciate it. And also, most importantly, thank you for watching.